Ladies, gentlemen, and Nightfarers of all ages, the Forsaken Hollows DLC is here, and with it a solid infusion of new content for Elden Ring Nightreign. With today being the proper release of all this new stuff, let's go over everything to expect when you go into this DLC, how to engage with it, what there is to actually do that's new, and we'll also go over the rewards for beating the new expeditions if you want to know those as well. First things first, earlier in the same day that the DLC came out, we had patch 1.03, and just to go over that super quickly, there were a bunch of quality of life changes that were a bit more minor. We had a few passives and dormant powers added to the game, as you can see here, and then a bunch of the existing passives were buffed as well. Then similarly, we had a bunch of increased effectiveness on relic effects too, and this section fails to mention some really important stuff. First, there's also a new category of relic effect that you can find that lets you change the spell on your starting armament if you are playing a caster Nightfarer, which means this is a big win for Revenant specifically, who can now start with things like Lightning Spear or Beast Claw right from the jump. As well, there are a few effects that used to be exclusive to Deep of Night relics that are now in the pool of generic relic effects too that you can get on standard relics, which just expands the relic system in general to be a bit more interesting and intriguing going forwards, even outside of Deep of Night runs. That said, as for the DLC itself, as long as you have defeated the Tricephalos expedition, you can start the DLC by going to talk to the Iron Menial wherever he is in your roundtable hold when you load in. He will ask you to talk to the small jar who sells you things for merc, and then the jar will ask you to check the room behind where he normally sits, and interacting with the door will start something that I don't want to spoil here, but after you complete that event, you unlock two new Nightfarers right out the gate, being the Scholar and the Undertaker. We'll have proper detailed guides and deep dives on these two coming up quite soon, but for now a sort of quick breakdown is the Scholar is heavily leaned towards items, consumables, and statuses as his main focus. He can stack more of an item per item slot, he levels up item types by using them to make them more effective, and they can then gain extra effects, like lightning pots gain the ability to hit twice, fire pots leave behind a pool of fire on the ground that deals continuous damage, greases increase their effect and last significantly longer when you reach full max level, and things like wondrous physic tears, those just increase all of your attributes when you use them regardless of which one you use. All kinds of stuff like that for the various different item types. And then both his skill and his ultimate are very sort of support focused, with the skill being used to either apply debuffs to enemies or buffs for allies, and then the ultimate making all nearby enemies share a portion of the damage they take, and all nearby allies share any healing that they receive. That said, I do think his ultimate art is a pretty damn good pairing with the other new character, the Undertaker. His stats favor Arcane above all else, and he doesn't have great damage scaling stats outside of that as a base, and his preferred weapon type is thrusting swords. The Undertaker is all about unga-bunga-ing with a bit of class and elegance rather than the pure ooga-booga of the Raider. Her skill gives her general speed and stamina buffs among a few other effects for a short duration, and it is quite strong. Her ultimate art is just a big pile of damage, and her passive lets her use her ultimate art for free anytime that another Nightfarer uses their ultimate art, and after certain enemy attacks too. So for example, I was playing Scholar with Josh and Aaron, who were playing Undertaker, both of them. Every time that I hit my ultimate art as Scholar, I would link all enemies together to make them share damage, then each of them would get a free, powerful, high damage ultimate to shove in, which would deal damage to all targets that were linked. And for something like a multi-target boss, that does some pretty beautiful things. Her stats favor strength and faith, though you'll probably be focusing more on the strength side of that scaling just by the nature of her gameplay, though there are plenty of weapons with mixed strength and faith scaling to take advantage of with her as well, and her preferred weapon type are just pure, raw hammers. When you unlock these two new characters, you also get a few other things. To start with the simple ones, go check the collector's signboard because there are two new vessel options available for each Nightfarer that can change your relic configuration of choice, as well as 4 vessels for Scholar and 4 vessels for the Undertaker as well. The other main thing that you get is the Balancer's Expedition target unlock, which is one of the new Night 3 bosses, and these new ones are referred to as Abominations instead of the old title, which was Night Lords, so this one unlocks here just immediately as you do this. As well, you also unlock the new Shifting Earth, which feels like an understatement of a term for this, the Great Hollow. The Great Hollow Shifting Earth is essentially a completely new map, a full extra map in comparison to the normal one that we play on in every other condition. Yes, Shifting Earths usually change a small portion of a map, but the Great Hollow is genuinely just an entirely different area. It's a totally different beast. The layout is completely different. There are points of interest and bosses that you will not find in other areas and without this Shifting Earth, and it's like playing completely fresh, trying to come to terms with the new stuff going on. It's honestly very cool and very deep, and it's another thing that we'll be talking about in much greater detail on this channel over the next couple of days as we play more and work out all the details and strategies related to it and such. That said, if you you purely want to get the rewards for completing each of the new expeditions the first time, I actually recommend not doing the Shifting Earth. Obviously, if you're just in it for fun, do the Shifting Earth, and I think that is definitely a very, very reasonable thing to be doing. However, if you just want the rewards, I think it makes it harder, especially because of the knowledge gap where we just don't really know how to treat it correctly yet. That said, I'm not telling you how to play, I'm just telling you that that is an option if that's what you want to prioritize. Once you successfully complete that first expedition for the Balancer's boss, then you get the related boss Relic, which is sort of crazy, honestly. Improved melee attack power, just in general, improved skill attack power just in general, and then continuous FP recovery as a whole. So essentially, if you are a character that likes spamming Ashes of War, which is very common among a lot of the characters, this is just an absolutely incredible relic. As well, you unlock the final expedition, which is for the new Dreglord Night 3 boss, who is essentially the proper big bad of the DLC. On top of that, completing the Balancer's expedition unlocks the ability to purchase 2 skins for each of the new Nightfarers, being the Dawn skin and the Night skin for each one respectively, which look like these as you can see here. As well, after defeating that first expedition, you unlock new character-specific relics for Scholar and Undertaker at the Small Jar Bazaar, and these are the effects that are on each one, giving you access to some of their character-specific effects, but obviously not all of them. On which note, you do also of course get the remembrances for both of the Nightfarers as you actually play them in expeditions, which will give you new relics for unlock for each one as well. That said, second expedition in the DLC is the Dreglord. When you defeat him, you get some more solid unlocks as well. First thing, you get his boss relic of course, which is called the Knight of Dregs. This gives a new effect. Status ailment gauges slowly increase attack power. It gives Scarlet Rot buildup on your attacks after you take damage, which is pretty cool. And it gives continuous HP recovery after Scarlet Rot is triggered nearby, and those two things as a combo sounds quite solid. We still need to properly test the first effect on this relic though, and if it turns out to be absolutely nuts, you will definitely hear more about it from us over the coming days as we do so. As well, past this, you get the ability to purchase 2 more skins for each of the new characters, which are the more silly and fun skins referencing previous games in the series. Oswald as the partner skin, and Yellowfinger Hazel as the Xanthus skin for the Scholar here, and then Brass Knight for the Brass skin, and then Ciaran for the Lord's Blade skin on the Undertaker as well. So some really fun skin choices there, at least in my opinion, but seemingly no other new skins for any of the other original Nightfarers. Past this, you also unlock a new vessel for purchase at this point, which is the Skidoo Grail, a new option for all Nightfarers that is just full red slots the whole way through, and you can get this from the Small Jar Bazaar, and this completes the sort of set of triple color vessels. As well, you unlock some new relics for purchase at the Collector's Signboard. Specifically, these are quite special as they are stat shifting relics for each Nightfarer, which is an effect that is normally tied to Deep of Night exclusive relics, but these are standard relics that you can just use normally, which means that we now have the ability to fully flip the playstyle of any Nightfarer, even in the regular expeditions, as long as you have completed the Dreglord. Specifically, you get 2 of these relics purchasable for each Nightfarer, which is 1 for each of their potential stat change effects that you can find in the relic search menu. These secondary effects are always just stat boosts that are relevant to this swap. To be more specific, for the new characters, at least as some examples, Scholar can get improved mind for reduced vigor, which to me seems mostly meant for things like spamming Wraith Calling Bell from range, which could be very, very solid with the character. Then improving endurance and dexterity as another option, but reducing intelligence and arcane. Honestly, this one seems sort of cracked for most situations. The arcane scaling loss is of course a negative for status applications, but it's not that big of a deal really, but his intelligence does nothing useful really, and getting improved endurance and dexterity means that you can actually get real scaling for his melee damage and not purely have to rely on item usage to reliably apply damage. Then for the Undertaker, there's improved dexterity, reduced vigor, and faith, which seems mostly for if you want to focus more on like quality style weapons for mixing strength and dexterity scaling together, though the HP hit might be a bit of a problem. Then improved mind and faith, reduced strength, which is basically just caster setup for Undertaker if you want to gear her more towards using incantations really. Outside of that, there's some other new stuff to find as you play. There are new Night 1 and Night 2 bosses for the 2 new expeditions, and I'm trying to avoid spoiling things too much, even though I know this is a video that you will only really click on if you don't care that much. So there are things like Demon Princes as a night boss, Artorias, Dancing Lion, Moog, and to be clear, it's the full Moog fight, both phases of it, including the part where he heals all the blood blood out of your body, which is a wild fight to have even before the end boss of the expedition. There's Curseblade and Divine Beast Warrior as a combo boss for Night 1 as well, and there are likely more on top of this as well, but those are the ones that I've encountered so far myself doing the new expeditions. As well, I believe they can show up during the Great Hollow Shifting Earth for base game Nightlords too, but not otherwise. For the most part, DLC content seems to be attached to DLC activities, meaning the 2 new expeditions and the new Shifting Earth in general. They haven't added any new seeds to the base game content as far as I'm aware at least. That said, there are a couple of new points of interest on the regular map when the Shifting Earth isn't active too for the new expeditions, and these are forges and swamps. Forges are the upper symbol here on this screen. They are a town area with a merchant and a big forge. You have to interact with the wall torch near the entrance to activate the forge, and then at the forge you can pick a customizable weapon to change its Ash of War to a random new one. While you don't get any sort of choice in this really, you can undo it and revert the change if you don't like what you get, so there's no real loss in trying it. The other new point of interest type are swamps. Yes, swamps, and that's the bottom of the 2 new symbols here. Swamps are exactly what you would expect from a Soulsborne game. There are various types of swamps, and they have a boss inside of them always as well. Both of these areas as well do have enemy types that weren't previously in Nightreign, like the Mesmer Soldiers from Shadow of the Erdtree, on which note, there are actually plenty of new enemy types all throughout the Great Hollow Shifting Earth as well, which again might as well just be called a new map if we're being realistic, which is why it has so much new stuff packed in there. And then there are a couple of new invasion types that were added to the game too, specifically being an invasion for Gladius, which spawns 3 separate red circles around the map. You just permanently lose health per second while it's active, and you have to go to each one of the red circles and kill a one-headed sundered Gladius boss in each location to end this event. But it will also start summoning bonus fire turtle enemies once you have defeated the first one. The reward for getting through it though is successive attack stamina regeneration and increased stamina benefits for allies through this as well, which is quite a strong buff generally speaking. The other new invasion is a Caligo-based invasion where it just emits a frosty chill over the entire map, occasionally sending ice shards down at you from above that you then have to deal with, and if you get to the circle you'll find Caligo sleeping there, bonk him on the noggin, it wakes him up and ends the invasion instantly, and then you get the power, which, when you get close to death, makes you go invisible and fully immune to damage for a few seconds. I don't know the full limitations of this yet, like a cooldown or anything like that, but when it did activate it felt really good. Then before we end things off, I do want to talk about the elephant in the room here really. There are no Shadow of the Erdtree weapon types that were added to the game like people speculated should happen. And in fact, in the entire DLC, there are no real new weapons at all. There is of course the starting thrusting sword for the Scholar and the starting hammer for the Undertaker, so technically those count as being new weapons, but that's it. There is nothing else for weapons. That said, in an interview with GamerSky before the DLC's release, the game director for Nightreign as a whole responded to a question about balance between different Nightfarers in the game, and the answer did mention that they will add new equipment and weapons in the future, but this was all machine translated from a Japanese interview, so take it with a bit of a grain of salt. Hence why Raider is called Rogue here, but this does imply that they do plan some sort of further major updates in the future, even if the specific wording isn't perfect, especially as this interview was released like the day before the DLC came out. That pretty much does it for today then everyone. An overview of everything there is to do in the DLC now that it has released, the sort of order of unlocks and what you can get or do at each stage of it, just to sort of both give you a bit of a guide on how to get into the meat of the new stuff as quickly as possible, and what you get for winning the new expeditions, in case it's enough to make you want to focus more on the winning the expeditions before trying to work out something like the new Shifting Earth, and before you really dig into one of the new characters either. Obviously, the choice is up to you. I just like giving you the information to make those choices. I hope you've enjoyed this then everyone, and I wish you the best of luck hunting down the abominations that have filled our game. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.